Hello, friends. My name is Host Eric. I'm the host of Talking with Famous People, and I had a very interesting conversation this morning with famous person Susanna from Norway, and we were talking about SI, the coherent self notion in particular. I have said in the past that when you have SI as a third function, your hidden agenda is to construct a complete and coherent self that makes sense through time. And in my conversation this morning, I realized that that explanation exemplifies my own fourth slot SI bias. To me, with SI in the fourth slot, I'm looking to get oneself set up at best. If I can get one set up, that's fine. And so it seems to me that the third slot person must be seeking to get that one set up. But actually, I think the way it works, as Susanna explained, I'm keep in mind that I'm not quoting her, attributing this to her, because I'm sure it's some Eric variation of whatever she said. But but what she definitely did indicate was that it's a combination of, there are multiple selves, and that each of them is sort of she referred to them as timelines. But I think another way to put it would be, there are two different kinds. That there's a self, the selves are understood through two different frames. One being a linear progression of events through time, and the other one being a bundle of characteristic attributes, behaviors, displays, and verbal habits and stuff like that. One way to understand this might be to say you're a different self at work than you are at home. And then my question naturally that followed was, well, is the goal then of the INTP, because she's an INTP, to construct or complete a meta framework that allows those various selves to be understood through a single holistic model that accounts for everything and renders all of your various selves into a single satisfying whole? And she said, sort of, or something like that. I don't remember what she said, but the point is that I like that explanation, so that's the explanation I'm going with, regardless of whether she likes it or not, or you like it. I like that explanation. So it's consistent for me also with the data that I've had for INTPs in general, that they'd like to attain a self as much as they would like to live a self. INFPs, similarly, with the SI in the third slot, they have a lot of difficulty. This relates to SE in the seventh. A lot of difficulty coming to terms with the complicated realities of distinction. Distinction, namely the ways in which something is this and not that. Exclusivity, the ways in which the law of non-contradiction plays out in the physical world and in the metaphysical world as well. Those things cause one to be compelled to parse out distinctions. For INFP, parsing out distinctions is contrary to their inclusive, holistic, dominant function, FI. So FI can have mixed feelings, right? You have mixed feelings about something. You have a bittersweet relationship with something. You can have a love-hate relationship. And I am guessing it's possible even to have those feelings concurrently. To me, it would seem like they would happen in succession, but that's because I'm FI polar. So when we're looking then at that third slot function, what the INFP is looking to do is to divide the self into subselves that are understood as bundles of feelings primarily. They might say, I watched a video the other day where an INFP life coachy guru type person described the pain self, in which you can construct the SI self that holds all the pain and carries it around for you so that it's not crippling to the other selves as they manifest themselves. To me, this sounded really strange because if you're not experiencing emotional pain, or physical pain for that matter, then you don't still have it. Well, with the physical pain model, it's obviously the case. If I'm not in pain, then I'm not in pain. Right? If I hit my hand really hard against this thing and it's ouch, I'm in pain for as long as it hurts, and then I'm not in pain anymore. I don't carry with me a chip that contains the pain that I experienced so I can reference it again and again and again. Emotional pain is a little bit different because emotional pain is attained through epistemological engines first. Pain begins when you know. Emotional pain begins when you know something or believe something. Emotional distress begins when you attend to something of a meaning. You attend to a meaning that you don't like. And so you might not like it for a number of reasons. You might not like that meaning because it's inconsistent with your preferred framework. In other words, I don't like that meaning because it's logically inconsistent would be, I don't like that meaning because it's not TI. You might, or, I don't like that meaning because it doesn't have outcomes. It'd be saying, I don't like that meaning because it doesn't fit my metric for success of my dominant function and its criteria as a judging function. For perceivers, we might say, I don't like that meaning because it's outcome-oriented, not process-oriented. Or it's ends, not means. And I think perceivers prefer means, not ends. And if you are, but of course that's going to vary in which, if you are SI first, it's going to be like, no, I don't like it because it's means based, but it's prioritizing personal valuing of things, which is offensive kind of to SI DOMs because they've got, what's offensive to ISFJs because they've got 6th slot FI. It would be a blind spot for ISTJs. So, the thing is, but the point is, if whatever you got in the 6th slot, you're not going to like it. So if you're an SI DOM, you're going to be about perceiving and stuff first and foremost. And so you're going to be about process first and foremost. Process first. But unlike any DOMs who are like process first and maintaining potentialities first, SI DOM is going to be about attending to the local process first and forsaking, even insofar as forsaking flexibility between processes is necessitated by doing so. So it's okay to lose flexibility between processes and to focus just on this one process to make it your primary concern. That's like an SI DOM. Process of processes is NE DOM. We are we want to be tethered the least. We want flexibility in not just this specific, executing this specific process. We want flexibility on choosing which processes to execute and when, and on discarding and adopting processes at will. We would like to be enabled to be whim machines. So obviously where SI plays out in the stack is going to be very different in terms of how it manifests, what kind of self you want to be. Now, I suspect the SI would say, I'm not focused on one process. I'm focused on 50 different processes concurrently that are all about the same thing, myself, my identity. Now, even that might sound like, oh, well, what a self-absorbed person. No, they're not. They don't play out as self-absorbed at all because they construct their identity around either, for like the ISFJ, they've got TI in the 3rd slot, which means their largest motivational framework, which means they're not that naturally deft with it. So they can only look at it from sort of a broad perspective. There's a broad motivation. I can't do work effectively enough in there to have it be the gameplay. It's got to be driving the gameplay. So for ISFJ, they've got TI there. Consistency is driving the gameplay. So they're continually repositioning the threads of themselves, the various threads of self within a tapestry of self that is managed by the curator-like function SI that goes, I'm an archivist and I'm managing this archive to give this library of selves a distinct identity. I don't want to just be someplace where there's books. I want to be the Library of Alexandria or something like that, you know? That's SI down. SI second slot, like Candace was, for her, the self manifests as according to how much it matches up with her vision, her planning of the self into the future. I think that because she's a judger first and they're ends driven, SI plays out a lot more contentiously if it's in the second slot. So for Candace, I was constantly failing because I didn't conform to her planned vision for who I would be in her grand play of life. Now she since has become much more evolved, but that's how it worked in the second slot. In the second slot, it's a working thing. So you're doing work with it, and it's like, I've created this plan now in my head of how my life's going to be, and it requires various people to fit certain roles. Now, I am done my very best to be flexible about what kind of room you have to play this role and what kind of interpretive room you have, but you fundamentally need to cooperate with the fact that you are going to film my role and be as much like me as I need you to be as possible. And to the extent that you deviate from that, it's a problem that you need to address. So that's kind of SI second slot issues that you might have. Now, you've got in the SI second slot, you've got ESFJ and you've got ESTJ. Yeah, and ESTJ, similarly, they've got a vision not for who you should be, but what you should do. And they want you to do their shit. They want you to do it their way. So that's my sort of breakdown on SI in the first slot versus SI in the second slot versus SI in the third slot versus SI in the fourth slot. SI third slot, they get the threads thing like the first slot people do. They're still process oriented. No, they're not. They're ends oriented. That's why they have. See, INTPs and INFPs are a weird hybrid of process and ends. Even though they have judging functions first, this is why MBTI wants to call them INTP and INFP, because they do have a certain quality of that process orientation that the perceivers have, but it's deceptive. It's because their perceiving tool function is extroverted intuition instead of introverted intuition, and as a consequence, they're making new meaning right away as a default tool function about stuff that's settled. What? Well, that's why it takes them so long to act, because they're like, here's what I know, here's what's true, here's what's right, here's the judgment I've made. Wait, is that judgment possibly wrong? You know, it's in that way it's kind of backwards, because for me, I go, let's see what's gonna happen, and then I go, oh, that happened, that probably means this. But let's see, it could be something different. Or maybe it means that. Or maybe it means this. Maybe it means that. Maybe it means that. Now, for a judger, they'd be like, what a nightmare. He's operating without any place to stand. He doesn't know who he is. And so he's perfectly comfortable with not identifying with any particular affirmations or negations or position statements or anything that he's attached to. His level of attachment serves him well in battle, but it is a tragedy because it's indicative of a lack of clearly identified self. One might make that argument. For example, one might say even his dispassionate assessment of himself as selfless is indicative of the tragedy of the detachment of which we speak. You could say that too, So, but the point is, for me, the solution's easy. I know what it means to. For me, I can have life be perfect. I can make a perfect life, and the perfect life looks like this. I have got a woman here who handles all the financial shit. She takes care of my business, and like she said, all right, give me all the books and shit on this, and give me vague ideas about what you want and profit potential areas, and talk me through the simple TE stuff to actually make that shit happen, and then I will become the runner, director, owner of the school, basically, and Eric, and you can go back to doing what you do, which is play all the time. And in exchange, we will both benefit by becoming rich. And, but the thing is, rich, relatively, I don't know. Because both, I've got lots of shit with a lot of financial potential energy in it. But it's got to be extracted. It doesn't matter how many atoms you have. You're not going to make an atom bomb unless you figure out how to do it. And do it. Okay, so I have all the pieces here. I have lots of different designs for atom bombs. Many of them seem like they will work. But what I don't have is the impetus to actually make any of them and see. So I need some, and I don't even need a woman to come in here and make them and see. I need a woman to come in here and say, okay, Eric, can you get up now and do this thing? And ideally, she's very sweet about it, And ideally, really beautiful. If she, it's like, if a beautiful woman asks me to do something, some little task, I somehow all of a sudden like doing that task. I don't know. I guess I'm a pushover like that. So, that's what I want. I want to hire my boss, my life boss. And I want her to come in here and be my life boss. And she can, like anybody who is somebody else's life boss, they get to profit from it as much as they want. As long as I'm cool, right? As long as I have what I want and do what I want, then everything else is all just whatever she wants to do with it. Okay, whoever comes in here and bees my woman is going to get a lot of shit for it, not get a lot of shit, like get a lot of stuff or whatever. I don't know, get a lot of benefits. I know people don't like to fucking talk about that shit on that level. It's a simple cost-benefit analysis. Why do we have to be all like, let's make this more complicated? So anyway, yeah, I could get that shit locked down. I'd have a single SI cell that I'd be satisfied with. I'd be like, there, I got Eric done. Eric's the guy who's got all the shit set up so he doesn't think about it anymore. He's the guy who fucking made it so he could play all the time. Who really made it so he could play all the time. Not play all the time, but have to do a little bit of things here to make sure he can still play all the time. I don't want to have to do a little bit of things here. And who also gets laid, which by not leaving the house. So, woman right there, and I move it into the kitchen. She can have all the rest of the house, and let's make some money. And then I'll fuck you periodically in between. It'll be great. That's not what this video is about. I don't know why I went there on this video, but SI thing I was saying. It'll be fun. Let's have SI party, everybody. SI party in the house now. Walking down a memory lane. Remembering how I did shit before and how it turned out so great.